Hi, it's Lorie Morse, and I wanted to come to you with a hopefully short little conversation and presentation about our heart. And it's about basically the care and the feeding of our heart. In Chinese medicine, our heart is the seat of the soul. It's the portal to the connection to life. And it's also considered that in Chinese medicine, it's called the monarch. And so we don't get taught in the West what it means to, curate and cultivate our heart. We're really head based. In the West, it's, there's a little bit more attention paid to that, probably because of ancient tradition and wisdom. So anyway, this little mini presentation is an invitation for just creating awareness and a very simple process based in research that gives us a better connection with our heart. And over time, that's the cultivation part. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Yeah, let's see here. Oops, get rid of this. There we go. Okay, so the care and tending of your heart. And so there's ancient wisdom, ancient tradition, ancient understanding that many traditions have, taken to heart, literally, pun intended. But then there's also modern research, and heartmath.com, if you care to look up their research, I think they've been doing research on the heart for 40 to 45 years. So the process that I'm going to teach you in this little mini presentation is based in the research of HeartMath. So let's move ourselves along. Okay, so heart coherence is something where we're actually in an alignment with our system and with our external environment. Most of us are not in that heart coherence. Most of us are, give pretty much the reins, if you will, to our head, and our heart is left out of the equation. But what's interesting, and we'll learn this in, I think it's the next slide, that it's actually our heart that gets the signal first from the environment or emotions from another person or even our own emotions before the brain. It just feels like the brain is what registers it first, but it's our heart. And if you choose to take on this practice, then you'll actually notice that your heart is communicating in fairly regular communication with you, especially if it's in heart coherence. So after we go through the benefits of heart coherence, I'm going to teach you how, and it's very simple, it takes very little time, but I'm going to teach you how to bring your heart into coherence. But what it's important to know, the value of doing this, it's like, the return on your investment of doing the practice or the process is far greater than actually what it takes to do the practice. And so that's what we'll go over real quick here. Parasympathetic, in our autonomic nervous system, we have two branches, sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic is fight, flight, freeze, and the parasympathetic is where we heal. It's where we rest and digest and heal, right? Like our body cannot heal if we're in the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. And here's the rub, is that most of us live in, on a spectrum, but within the sympathetic nervous system experience. And we don't even know it because we're so used to it and it's such a habit. It's a stress response to our body. And the fact that we have become so adapted to living in a stress response does not speak well of, our capacity to heal and be at peace and access parts of ourselves that, that we don't even know exist yet, right? So here's something that might be motivating to you. When we're in the parasympathetic branch of our nervous system, our metabolism is more efficient, or higher, if you will, and we're in this state of relaxation. So if you're having a problem losing weight, then and you've tried everything, externally, like different ways of eating and that kind of thing, and intermittent fasting and all the things, it's most likely, and especially if there's any weight that's getting carried in the middle, that's because one is living in the stress response and the cortisol is too high, because when we're in a stress response, the body releases cortisol. And you probably know this from reading magazines and articles and all the things, but calming our system and bringing us our system back into parasympathetic will re-engage a healthy metabolism. So being in heart coherence also reduces that cortisol and other stress hormones that we just mentioned. It is very corrosive to constantly have stress hormones coursing through our system. Our system wasn't designed for that. It was only designed if we needed to run from a tiger on the plains of Africa, or if we needed to not run ourselves out in front of a car or something along those lines. But we have somehow figured out how to constantly live in that branch and constantly have this, constantly secreting stress hormones, and then they're in our system all the time, and that is so unhealthy. So being in a state of heart coherence also improves sleep. It increases our capacity to learn, to be creative, to have access to solutions. And it gives us like a way into that feeling of being in the zone, no matter what you're doing. I mean, you could be doing a project at work, you could be talking to your teenager, you could be driving, it doesn't matter. But being in that zone is, it is a state of alignment and coherence and parasympathetic, activation, if you will. So it also, being in this heart coherence, harmonizes and strengthens our hormonal, nervous, cardiovascular, and immune systems. I think we could all use a little bit of that, especially over a certain age. It's more stressful to be in an older body, and so activating the heart coherence it just takes monkeys off the back, if you will, of these systems. It also gives us access to harmony and a sense of trust and a sense of appreciation or gratitude and love and even empathy or compassion. I actually like the word compassion better. I don't know why I didn't put that word there instead of empathy. But anyway, you get the idea. The being in heart coherence also expands and stabilizes our electromagnetic aura. So you might know that the heart is an organ that has an electroconductive aspect to it. No other organ does. In fact, the heart is the only organ in the body that doesn't get cancer. So that's kind of an interesting consideration about our heart, right? And it influences. So the coherence that we have when we do what we're going to be doing together, it affects the space around us, right? This is an external field to our physical body. So, and it's considered to be about 3 feet around us, like a big fat egg, and about the distance of where if you put your arms straight out, where your fingertips, are, then that's how far our auric field, or our electromagnetic field, or our, what else was I going to call it? Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, that's how far we can influence the space around us. And when we're in heart coherence, it actually helps other people come into a calmer place. So if that's something that you would love in your life, then this would be a good practice for you. So I've already mentioned Chinese medicine considers the heart to be the portal to consciousness, the seat of the soul, the monarch. And when we have ourselves in this alignment, then that's the way we get to live. So it's kind of, a big deal. Okay, so the other thing is that the alignment of our heart and our mind is critical. I actually believe that the division we're seeing in the world, and if we take whatever it is that is being divided, right, whether it's politics or race or gender or whatever, and I don't mean to make light of those things. I'm just saying that the division in the world is trying to get our attention, because everything that gets projected in the collective consciousness, in the world screen, if you will, is trying to get our attention for something that is happening inside each of us as humans, because we all make up the collective. And I believe what that division is trying to get our attention to is bringing our heart mind, our head and our heart, into union and balance and harmony, because most of us are out of that balance. We have way more attention in our head, way more awareness in our head, and very little in our heart. So a couple of interesting things to know about the heart is that it possesses its own sensory neurons. I think that the research from HeartMath says that there's upwards of 40,000 brain cells that are in our heart muscle, right? So it isn't just our brain that has brain cells, but our heart carries them too. And that may be why that the heart registers, sensory or, environmental or emotional cues before our brain actually does. So these neurons um, think in their own way. The heart has its own way of having thinking processes and logic, and it's a little different than the head. So it begs the invitation to get to know what that means for you, if you will. So it's actually the heart that sends messages to the brain and to the nervous system about what it is picking up, the cues that it's picking up, like we've already mentioned. So this is the definition of heart coherence. Heart coherence is a state where the heart and brain communicate freely. It's an open, free way, if you will, and they come into sync and harmony, and thoughts, emotions, and the nervous system responses are all in alignment and balance. And that's when you start feeling that, it's kind of hard to give up because it's really good. And of course, in the beginning, when we start any practice, we'll forget and we'll just go back to our autopilot, and it'll seem familiar, and it is, because we've been doing it for so long, meaning being only in our head and excluding our heart. But with regular practice, it becomes a little bit easier to go, wait a minute, something's not right. Oh, let me bring myself into heart coherence, right? So I'm going to teach you a heart meditation, and it includes these three elements, right? Heart presence. So being present and aware of the heart, dropping your awareness in so that you actually have a connection into your heart and not just being in your head. Heart breathing, which is a very specific breath for the heart, and then heart imagining. Okay, so let's go on to that. So we're gonna go through I think there's only one or two more slides. We're gonna go through the slides. I'm gonna tell you, like, by these words what this actually means. And at the very end, we're just gonna do it together. I'll walk you through it as a guided meditation. And that way, if you wanna just splice out the last bit of it, or voice memo it or something like that, you just have this heart meditation for yourself until you have it on your own. These would just be training wheels until you have it as your own. So the heart focus is where we put our attention on our heart. It's like we give our inner sight permission to look inward and into our heart, instead of always being captivated by what's external to us, right? And a lot of people do like to just place their hand over their heart. It could be one or two hands, and then that is more helpful to just bring your awareness into your heart center. It's our heart muscle, which is a little off to the left of center. If you can see me here. So if this is center, it's a little off to the left. Now I know that shows as right on your screen, but it's left on your body. And the energy center, the energy center of the heart is, more in the center, and it's front and back. So you want to just know that it's bigger than just this little muscle that hangs out over here. It's an energetic center, if you will. It's a chakra. So the breathing part is you're going to practice and kind of train yourself, if you will. Pretend is what the slide says, that you're breathing through your heart. So when you're inhaling, you're receiving the cosmic life force, the breath from your heart, and you're exhaling it out from your heart. So it's like your heart is breathing. And it isn't like your heart is breathing, because your heart is breathing. It's just you're giving your heart that focus, that attention, that awareness, and that consciousness of breath, if you will. And it is a good idea to breathe on the slower side. So it's recommended, this is again based on the research, that you inhale for a count of 5 or 6-ish, and you exhale as slow, 5 or 6-ish, right? So until it just feels like you're just breathing rhythmically, and it feels smooth and it feels even. And if you do this for about a minute, you can set your phone alarm if you want, or you can just do it a series of 6 or 9 or something like that, inhales and exhales. You will feel a difference in your body already, right? And then the heart feeling one, and you do not want to leave this one out, is continue to breathe through the area of your heart, and then identify a positive feeling. And the research shows that gratitude is probably one of the best feelings to reach for, because it's pretty easy for most of us to find something that we can be grateful for, even if it's just for a moment. If you open your eyes and look external to yourself, oh, I love this color teal. You could just make it something as simple as that. But the key is that you identify the thing that you like, or you have a positive feeling about. You can play with this. Maybe it's your pet that you have unconditional love for, and it's just easy for you to feel that love and gratitude in your heart. Maybe it's a grandchild, maybe it's a tree in your yard, maybe it's the vision of a meadow with a creek and, a beautiful blue sky and beautiful wildflowers around you. Whatever gets that imagery and the activation of a positive feeling and specifically gratitude. And then you keep breathing with that and you feel it. It has to be felt. It can't be cognitive. You can't go, oh yeah, I know I like the color teal, so I'm just going to focus on that. But that's intellectual and it isn't a feeling state, right? So you're dropping your awareness into your heart and you're practicing feeling the gratitude. Now, some people this is easy for, and some people it's really not. But the practice of, feeling into it, and maybe you do this 100 times, and then one day you're in the grocery store and you actually feel the feeling of gratitude for something you pick up, in the produce section or something like that. Like maybe it's the color, maybe it's the, vitality of it. It doesn't matter. But life will give you opportunities to feel gratitude if you just keep showing up and being, what's the word I'm looking for? Being interested in accessing the feeling state of gratitude. So yeah, and so then you just keep you keep the feeling going, you keep your attention, your awareness on your heart, and you keep the breath, and you you keep all three of those things kind of going. You keep it braided, and I will tell you in the beginning it will feel a little clunky and a little funky, but if you just keep doing it anyway, then it'll get easier and easier, like anything, right? It's just like if you ever learn to drive and you learn to drive on a stick shift, it's like, oh, I have to keep the steering wheel straight, I have to do the pedals on, my feet, and then I have to do the stick. It's like that, it's like now you don't even think about it, you just do it, right? So it's similar to that. So, and maybe sometimes for some people it's better if they just take a day and they just remember to just drop their awareness into their heart, and then maybe the next day they set the heart focus aside and they just focus on the breathing. And then the next day they focus on accessing a feeling of gratitude throughout the day. And then the following day you put them all together and you practice, doing that. And if you feel like one of them is harder than the other, then take another day and focus just on that, right? So you don't feel like you're overwhelming your sensory system with with too many things. I know it sounds silly to say that, but our mind would have us believe that 3 things like this is too many if it's unfamiliar and kind of wonky at first. So just don't let your mind boss you around like that. Okay, so this is just breaking it down a little further. So it's, a 5-ish second inhalation, a 5-ish second exhalation. And that, that ends up being approximately six of this is a cycle in and out, right? 6 per minute. And if you do this for 5 minutes, the benefits of that, of the coherence, of the alignment of your nervous system, of the connection between your heart and your head, of all of your hormonal messaging and immune function and cardiovascular, all that stuff will be in alignment for about 4 to 5 hours, unless something really dramatic happens, something shocking or traumatic or, an upsetting situation. Then you can just take another few minutes and come back to this. And this is the thing to remember, because I think this is the hardest thing for Western minds, Western systems, which is to feel the gratitude, feel it, not intellectualize it, but feel it as you're doing the breathing and the attention into the heart. So, I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer, but when just want to talk about when is a good time for us to engage in a heart meditation like this, anytime I would start my day off and end my day. In fact, I do with this. So when you feel scared or anxious, or you feel like your safety is threatened, it's a good time. Now your mind will have you think, I need to be on high alert here. So we don't have time for this nonsense. But honestly, we're safer when we have our head and our heart connected. So you might have to remind your head of that a few times. Whenever you notice you're triggered is a good time to do this. Before falling asleep, I already said that. Good time. What else are you going to do when you're waiting at a stoplight, sitting in your car, just standing in line at a grocery store? I don't think it's too weird to just, close your eyes and put your hand on your heart. And you don't have to put your hand on your heart, but it does tend to, help keep our awareness in our heart. That's an easy enough thing to do. I've seen people do that. When you feel tension, when you notice, like if you've been hovered over your computer screen for, longer than you should be, and you're a little tight, then that's a perfect time to do this, because tension is the sympathetic nervous system response, and we're going for the opposite, the parasympathetic nervous system response, which is the relaxation response, the place where our body gets to heal and come into balance, right? So if you're in an exchange with someone and it's a little bit tricky, or there's some friction, then if you just take a pause and then do a quick version of this heart meditation, it will be very helpful in what you say or don't say, or do or don't do, or how you move forward with the situation. And it's okay to say to someone, just give me a minute and take a second or two to breathe. The more you practice when you're not triggered or you're not in hard situations, the easier it will be for you to access when you are in those situations. So, try to practice all the time so it becomes a natural, more instinctual access for you, right? If you feel discomfort of any kind, that would be a good time to engage in the heart meditation. All right. So then if you want extra credit, so to speak, if you want to imagine, like visually, that you're standing under a waterfall like this, in a beautiful setting like this, as you're doing your heart meditation, that would be fantastic, because actually our higher self is above us and is always flowing light to us. We're the ones who sort of pinch it off to this tiny, teeny little trickle, when really, if we were aware of this, and if we invited it, it would be more like a stream of liquid light that comes from our higher presence. And that liquid light is medicine, it's intelligent, it's wisdom, it's balance, it's harmony, it's peace, it's everything that every heart aches for. And I always imagine that it's dropping into my heart center and then flowing over, like overflowing, like a fountain in a park, and giving it to all of my cells, and even moving outside of my physical boundaries and into the space around me. So yeah, and the other thing to know is that when we invite this, it's filled with a type of cosmic life force that is more than just oxygen in the air we breathe. There's other aspects to it, like I already mentioned, the intelligence and the wisdom and the peace and all of that. So it isn't, and this is all research too. So if you just do it for, let's just say I'm going to do this for 30 days, because anything less than that is going to, it's just, your mind is going to, throw tantrums. I mean, it might do that in the beginning anyway, but if your mind is like, all right, I guess we got to do this for 30 days. And then at the end of the 30 days, you're like, yeah, that really does feel good. Yeah, that does change outcomes for the better. And then you can just do it for another 30 days until your mind's like, all right, I'll give it to you. Go for it. You own this, that kind of thing. So, and then once you do the heart meditation, whether it's 3 minutes or 4 minutes or 5 minutes, you'll get a longer, that 4 to 5 hours of alignment when, if you do it that long. When you go about your day, try to just keep it in your awareness. Try to keep the awareness of of a waterfall of light. Try to keep the awareness of your heart, and keep the awareness of the electrical coherence, the conduction that your heart is creating by your breath and your heart meditation and the space around you. So that is what I would recommend. And then, okay, well, yeah, then the other thing I was going to invite you to, if you like this, there is a, here it is down here. You'll have to, probably, that's not going to be a clickable link, but if you want to carry this a little bit further, I have this 5-day, it's complimentary, mini course that goes through these 5 things on the screen: the power of grounding, the power of connecting, the power of presence, the power of being embodied, and the power of purpose. And all of this involves, basically an aspect of this breath work that we're talking about for our heart. So, okay, so let's do the heart meditation together. And I'm going to actually go back to the this part. So in case you need to check it out, or maybe I'll go to this one, because this is a little bit more, I don't know, explanatory. Okay, so ideally, I mean, you don't want to be driving when you're doing this, right? So if you are, then maybe just come back to it. But this is the part that I'm just going to walk us through, and then I'm not going to say anything at the end. I'm just going to say goodbye now and enjoy this, and let me know how you like it. And then that way you'll have that little clip for a guided meditation for yourself. Okay, so let's begin with our feet on the floor so we feel grounded, and let's begin with placing one or both of our hands over our heart center, just at the center of our chest. And if there's a little adjustment you want to make one to one side or another, up or down, that's fine too. But as long as you're in that general central chest area, and imagine that you're just dropping your awareness from your head to your heart. And there's a thoroughfare between your head and your heart. And you may or may not be able to see that, but over time you will either see it or feel it or sense it. And it doesn't really matter what happens this time, but mostly it's just kind of initiating the engagement of the connection between your head and your heart. And go ahead and leave your awareness, your attention, your consciousness, your focus in your heart center. And if you wander, if your mind wanders, then just drop it back in. That's all you have to do. There's nothing fancy about it. Just drop your awareness into your heart. Imagine that it's like a regal room, and there's any kind of garden or throne chair or anything along those lines that will keep you interested in being in that heart center, so your mind has something to focus on. I sometimes imagine like a rose quartz crystal throne-like chair that I can sit on, and it's in the middle of a beautiful meadow with lots of wildflowers, and that way my mind has something to focus on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, and we'll do 3 times together, but I'm going to count. So we're just going to take an inhale to the count of 5 or 6. And then let that settle, and then slowly exhale to the same count of 5 or 6. And let's do that 2 more times. Inhale and exhale. And remember that you're keeping your focus in your heart. So maybe you just need to tap your hands or something, and inhale and exhale. So that's 3 cycles. And so you'll want to do, a handful of those, right? 6 cycles equal a minute. And, if you want to do it for 5 minutes, then you're going to end up doing like 30 cycles. Do what you can. Just start out in whatever way your system will allow for, and then increase it a little bit more each time. Now what we're going to do with our focus in our heart and a nice natural rhythmic breathing, we're going to look for something that we can be grateful for, something that makes us feel a positive feeling of gratitude. And just let whatever comes to you come, and don't latch onto it as much as just notice it and ask your heart to show you the feeling of gratitude for that thing, whatever the thing is that you're identifying, even if it's just something as simple as a tree outside your window or a plant in the corner of the room you're in. It doesn't matter. Whatever makes you feel gratitude. And now we're going to do 3 more rounds of breathing with our focus on our heart and continuing to touch that feeling of gratitude. It might be fleeting in the first several times you do this, but it's okay. Let it be that way, and just keep coming back to it like you're coming back to home base, if you will. So let's inhale and exhale. Inhale with your focus in your heart, and you're touching that feeling of gratitude. And one more. And now let's do 3 more breaths with all of that and the imagining of being under that beautiful waterfall of liquid light that fuels us and heals us and is medicine for every part of our being. So keep playing with this. It's a practice, as I said. and see, if you make it a little playful, like, I'm going to see how long I can maintain this feeling of coherence, this feeling of connection with all of life through my own heart, this feeling of my heart and my head having like balance and harmony and connection to each other. And sometimes when you do this, you'll have more attention on your breath. Sometimes it'll be more on your heart center. Sometimes it'll be more on the feeling state of gratitude. Other times it might be that water. It doesn't matter. Well, the more you practice it, the more you will create like a rhythm with it. So go play.